And I started observing that in the origin story of a lot of these successful entrepreneurs, there was consistently a moment where they would say something like, something told me not to do the deal, or something told me to work with her over him. And I figured that's something I believe is intuition, but we never talk about intuition in business school, medical school, or law school.
Hey, Creating Maven. I'm Joy Spencer, your Reframe specialist, with one important message. Your real work, it's not your job or your career. Your real work is what you create. And what you create is what sets you apart and makes you incomparable. It's your legacy. I'm here to show you a whole new way of working so you can create with your gifts, make a unique contribution, and finally get paid to be yourself. This is Reframe to Create.
Does the idea of creating more and being more creative appeal to you, but you struggle to think of yourself as creative or to sustain a practice of creating? If this is you, you're not alone. And today's guest has just the reframe you need. Natalie Nixon is a creativity strategist known as the creativity whisperer for the C-suite. She is a highly sought-after keynote speaker, and she is valued for her accessible expertise on creativity, the future of work, and innovation. Natalie advises leaders on transformation to amplify growth and business value. She's also written many articles on how creativity is a core competency for the future of work in many industries, including finance, tech, media, and healthcare. I recently read her book, The Creativity Leap: Unleash Curiosity, Improvisation, and Intuition at Work, and I loved it. And I knew I wanted her to come on to share her wisdom with you about something that's very specific that she's developed and written about in the book. And this part had me sit up and pay really close attention. And that's the WonderRigor Paradigm. And she describes it as a key tool to unlock the creativity we need to be our most innovative. Cool, right? Yeah. So I bet you want to know what that is, right? And that's exactly what I asked Natalie to get into right off the top.
So the WonderRigor Paradigm is a way to understand creativity that really democratizes creativity. It's my perspective that it's not only artists or designers or a gifted, anointed few who are imbued with creativity, but to be human is to be hardwired to be creative. So Wonder and Rigor is a framework I developed to help people understand that creativity is actually happening when we're toggling between wonder and rigor to solve problems and deliver meaning and value. And so if you think about creativity in that way, then you realize that the best engineers and scientists and lawyers and coders and teachers and artists are super creative when they're doing this toggling between wonder and rigor. And wonder is about audacity and dreaming and deep curiosity. Rigor is about focus and discipline and skill mastery.
I wonder if I've seen this. I wonder if I've done this toggling between wonder and rigor. I mean, what exactly does this look like?
I think whenever we see stellar athletes, that's an example of creativity in my view, because these are people who have committed to incredible amounts of rigor, and then the wonder in terms of the audacity that they bring to their skill and their craft. Another example would be Albert Einstein, who had incredible rigor in terms of the ways that he approached physics and experimentation, but also his ability to zoom out, to daydream, to take breaks, to tinker on the piano, he was known to be found walking the streets of Princeton on his violin. He knew how to zoom out the wonder dimension in order to come back refreshed and able to reframe. So his greatest insights came from this toggling back and forth between the wonder and the rigor. So those are two examples.
Brilliant, right? I wondered how Natalie came up with this framework.
The first dimension, wonder, was the easier part for me. I actually had done a lot of work on the role of improvisation and experimentation and innovation. My PhD is in design management, and I was studying the ways that the Ritz-Carlton Hotel designs experiences that don't just satisfy people, but delight guests and exceed their expectations. So that was one component, unbeknownst to me, where I was building my portfolio of work of how I was helping people to understand the role of creativity in their work. When I was a professor, I launched a strategic design MBA program. I was the founding director of that program. And we used to have a lot of entrepreneurs and startup leaders and business leaders come and speak to the graduate students. And I started observing that in the origin story of a lot of these successful entrepreneurs, there was consistently a moment where they would say something like, something told me not to do the deal, or something told me to work with her over him. And I figured that's something I believe is intuition, but we never talk about intuition in business school, medical school, or law school. I decided with my anthropology background to do a miniature ethnography on intuitive leadership. And so I looked at dancer choreographers, chefs, and first responders, because my assumption was that these are people who use their intuition in the moment. Oh, DJs was the other group I looked at. These are people who use their intuition in the moment to respond accordingly. And it was when I was doing observational studies of a great company here in Philly called Ballet X that I saw, of course, there's incredible wonder in what and how the choreographer was working with the dancers. But in dance, you can see very obviously the rigor. It shows up in their body, it's in their musculature, it's in their attention to detail and their technique. And so that's when I started challenging myself to go beyond the wonder that I observe when a chef is creating an incredible meal or going through some sort of emergency effort, or when a first responder is dealing with a medical situation in that moment. There is rigor involved as well. So it was really through doing this ethnography on intuitive leadership that I came up with these two dimensions of creativity, both wonder and rigor.
What I love about this is that it captures people who may want to hide behind, the whole, oh no, I'm not creative. Yeah, I'm looking at you. No more hiding. Natalie won't let you hide behind that. In this, she's shown us that creativity isn't just the wonder part that seems elusive when we watch an artist lost in their craft during a performance, but it's also the rigor side of discipline and structure, which you might be more familiar with, which you might notice more with architects or engineers or accountants. It's not one or the other, it's both. It's the toggling between the two. And you've got both of these abilities, and you've probably done both of these things. So now that you've heard about it, I'm sure you're just chomping at the bit, wanting to know, how can I use this WonderRigor paradigm for myself? How can I use it today?
Well, I realized it wasn't enough for me to tell people to, toggle between wonder and rigor to solve problems and off you go. You're creative. How do you do that on a consistent basis? And so I developed another framework called the 3 I's. And when you implement the 3 I's on a daily basis, no matter what you're working on, you will necessarily toggle between wonder and rigor to solve problems. So the 3 I's stand for inquiry or curiosity, improvisation or a commitment to being super experimental, and intuition. So let's say you are working on a marketing plan or a pitch to a client. If you decide we don't want to do this the same old way that we've been approaching this for the past 4 years, then you might decide to prototype, to experiment, to improvise a different sort of way of approaching that market plan. And that prototyping, and a prototype is a rough draft, ugly mock-up of an idea. Improvisation is closely related to prototypes. You necessarily have to be wondrous in your approach. You have to challenge yourself to do it differently. And you also have to be rigorous. You have to you have to have done your research about the needs of this client. Similarly, let's say you want to apply inquiry in order to jar yourself into toggling between wonder and rigor to solve problems. Well, sadly, a lot of us have been question shamed. And as a culture, we're not necessarily really good at asking questions. We are even educated on the side of what's the answer, fill in the dot, fill in the blank. In reality, we all have to survive in environments that are super ambiguous, and we're much better prepared if we learn to ask new and different sorts of questions that will then lead to multiple possible outcomes. And in that process of challenging yourself to ask new and different sorts of questions about this marketing plan, for example, or this marketing pitch that you're working on, then you necessarily will have to engage in a bit of wonder as well as engage in a bit of rigor.
So that's how you do it. That's how you put the WonderRigor paradigm into practice and unlock your creativity so that you can be your most innovative by leaning into inquiry, improvisation, and intuition. And you already have these abilities in you. You can use them today. Creativity, and as you know how I like to talk about it, creating isn't just for the gifted, anointed few. It's for you because you're human, and being human means you're wired for this. So it's time to lean into more of this. Because according to Natalie, creativity isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have. Creativity is the engine of innovation and a core competency in the future of work. In her book, she has great tips and tools after every single chapter on how you can put these lessons into practice, both at the individual level for yourself and at the organizational level. So I encourage you to check it out and use the tips and get into the practice of creating more and tapping more into your creativity. And while you're at it, you should also check out episode 6 of Reframe to Create, Establishing Your Creative Hygiene Practice, for an easy tip on how you can start creating today. Natalie was amazing, and her goal is to work to change lives with ideas that help people to connect the dots between creativity and business impact so that they can consistently innovate. And if you want to learn more about all of that, follow Natalie on LinkedIn, where she shares lots of great nuggets that are going to help you boost your creativity competency. And we need this. You need this for the future. So check out her website, figure8thinking.com, and there you can sign up for her Ever Wonder newsletter and check out her blog. Creating is your superpower, so get to flexing this muscle. See you soon, Creating Maven. Until then, remember to always ask yourself, what will I create?